Hello, my fellow felines, and welcome to another edition of the Almond View podcast, the official bad boys of Livingston FC base podcast. This week, as per, I am joined by my co-host Jake Pointer.
Hello.
And the baddest of panellists of all time, Owen Innes, Thomas Froh, and Mr. Stephen Povey.
Hello.
Fuck off, everyone. Fuck off. Bad boys.
This week we'll chat to self-confessed new fan Connor Stables about how our stupid wee team captured his heart. We also reveal the nominations for our goal and result of the season ahead of next week's award extravaganza. And finally, we'll have a chat about our favourite Livingston St Johnstone connections.
We've hit record. The editing has been done. You're listening to the final polished product that has taken so much blood, sweat and tears to make. But hey, it's worth it to bring you content that's fresh, alternative, and that the powers that be absolutely loathe. Why not join us on a magical trip of all things Livingston with us here at the Almond View podcast?
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Sherry John Brown come for you? Tell me what you wanna do, what you gonna do. Yeah, bad boys, bad boys.
This week we are joined by a Livingston supporter. Now don't worry, I hear you from here saying, "Oh, big whoop, who cares? After Fernandez, you're probably struggling for guests, eh? The other mob got Keegan Jacobs, and you can only get another bloody fan, Tin Pot podcast." The reason we feel that this fan is a bit unique is because he is a self-confessed new fan. So please welcome to the Almond View podcast to tell us his story about how he started supporting Livingston, Mr. Connor Stables.
Hey!
Hello. How's it going, boys?
Yeah, not too bad, man, not too bad. How are you this fine Tuesday evening?
Fantastic. How could there not be?
Exactly, you're joining the Livingston podcast, the baddest podcast of all time. So now the listeners, the listeners and the fans, Connor, won't know that we've obviously known each other for many years. Me and your brother are very close friends and have been for 20 odd years. But we, in growing up, I always sort of remember Mark, your brother, supporting Rangers and you not really sort of being interested in football. So as the years went on, what was it that sparked your interest in actually actively supporting Livy?
So for me, it was kind of a double-edged sword. There's a positive and a negative to it. So when I started, the first game I went to, I'm a proper glory hunter, legit. Big as they come. So I went, like, Livy were in the playoffs to get to the the Premiership. I was like, cool, I'm in. If we get to the Premiership, I'm in. So that was the first game I saw. Was 11th of May. I think it was Dundee United. That game at Almondvale. I came home from work. Everyone, like, people had genuinely been talking about it in the town. About people come. I work in Livingston Centre, the home of Livingston, the heart of Livingston, and so I'd been customers had been telling me about it, talking about it. I came home. My dad and my brother were going to the game. We went to the Livy Inn, which is 2 minutes away from my house. Packed, like people standing outside drinking, and then there genuinely throngs of people walking from the Livy Inn to the Tony Macaroni. And it was brilliant. It was seeing faces that I hadn't seen in ages, but like I knew about the town. Talking to people I hadn't talked to, and then being at the game. The atmosphere in the game was electric. It really was, like a packed stadium. I didn't know what the hell was going on. Didn't know any of the players. Didn't really have any vested interest in it, to be honest with you. But it was just a good time being there. It was a real sense of like community and like, as cheesy as it sounds, like togetherness. Like everyone was there for the same reason. We were all wanting the same thing to happen. So being not a football fan particularly, that was really appealing to me. The negative side of things was that was the same day that I found out that a band I love, Frightened Rabbit, I know you love Liam as well, and on. The lead singer had we found out that he'd passed away. So that was, at work that day was terrible, and I basically came home looking for some kind of like outlet for it, which means getting drunk and getting drunk. So the Livium was the place to be. That was where everyone was going. So I went along to that game looking for a sense of community, and I found it. Like, I know it sounds dead cheesy, but it's amazing the positive impact that football can have, and I think a lot of that gets overlooked for, like, the rivalries and stuff are good, but for me, what draws me to football is the positive aspect and the supporting the same team and not necessarily shouting negative things at the players, but like, shouting positive, like being there and screaming when the goal goes in and all this kind of thing. So yeah, for me, that was the big turning point. Was that terrible thing happened in my life, or not my life, but this terrible thing happened anyway, and then that drew me to a really positive thing. And then from there, I just followed Livy, kept going back. Obviously got promoted. A lot of the first games I went to, I was drunk. That's like every story I have of the first few games. It was going into town, spending time with my family, having a drink, going to the game, just a real like day out. And then from there, obviously, you learn the players, you learn the sport. It's you appreciate the competitiveness. But yeah.
No, I mean, I remember I physically cannot believe that it's 3 years ago tonight of recording. Like, this time 3 years ago, we were probably all in the Livy Inn getting absolutely mangled. But yeah, that was I remember those playoff games being just that. Like, you'd seen, like, we'd grown up supporting Livingston, so we'd seen people that we used to see going to games coming back and having that interest. And as you said, it was a real sense of community. And then I remember the first home game of the Premiership.
Kilmarnock, I think.
Kilmarnock.
0-0 draw.
0-0 draw, and all the sort of the glory hunters. I think it was just you, your dad, your brother, and your sister that stuck about, man.
Yeah.
All the other thousands of glory hunters disappeared the game. But then that's the main thing, is that even if Livy had kept 100 people from that playoff game that weren't there the last home game of the season of the Championship, like the league game, then yeah, it's been a success. But so I mean, you sort of said that when you were younger you didn't really have much interest in football. So what was your opinion of Scottish football as a whole, but Livingston in particular, like growing up? Like, I mean, going to school in Livingston, did any of your pals support Livy, or were they just never talked about?
So my best pal, Dave, he supported Livy his whole life, and but having said that, I became pals with him in high school. So growing up, as a kid, Rangers were, like you say, my brother's into Rangers, my uncle and my granddad were into Rangers in a big, big way. So I would wear Rangers tops and know some of the players and not really care about the sport, but kind of be there in the outskirts of Rangers fandom. I know that 2013, 2014, like I know that a lot of those players, because that's I was like a really successful team and stuff. But in terms of Livy, the only connection I have, I remember Marvin Andrews coming in to my primary school in 2004, just before he left for Rangers, and brought in the League Cup for us all to sort of see and touch and whatever. That was really cool. But apart from that, there was almost no it's weird because it's a stadium 10 minutes from you, and you're more concerned about the stadium in Glasgow and what they're doing and all that. So yeah, it's strange, but it was never really a part of any sort of conversation. It's worth knowing though, people always say you should support your local team, and I believe that, I do, but football's all tradition. That's everything about football has some tradition to it. So the fact that these clubs are 100 plus years old and Livy's 26-year-old, you just can't compete with that sometimes. But like you say, if you can have these events, these playoffs, cup final would have been a great one. If you can have these big events and 100 people stay from the 1,000 extra that come to it, you're getting somewhere.
100%. Aye, my missus talks about Marvin Andrews coming into Peel Primary
Yeah, man.
all the time because it was the year after I left school or left primary.
No way.
I was absolutely gutted, man, because obviously I went to school in Edinburgh, so no one cared that we won the cup. But sort of touching on you mentioned Marvin Andrews coming into your primary and that. So we've spoken before. Usually when you've had a couple of drinks in you, you've told me the podcast is too focused on the glory days. There's not enough about the playoffs. There's not enough about this season or whatever. But do you resonate at all with the teams of yesterday? So the CIS Cup team, when we were talking about players like David Fernandez, David Bingham, even though you weren't like an active fan back then, like how aware of the sort of history are you, and how much do you sort of resonate with it?
So I wish that I did more, to be honest with you. There's not much there, but I do love hearing, hear player interviews obviously talking about it. I love hearing stuff like that. Jim Leishman's amazing to listen to. Talked about football in general, but like the Livy days, it's amazing. Thinking about like this wee team that we support that had such like lofty ambitions. It's amazing. It's almost like a different team, honestly. But like in terms of like the glory days, I can kind of appreciate, but I don't know whether it's just my personality or whatever. But what resonates more with me is the struggle immediately after. I love that story. I don't love the things that happened, obviously, but I love the fact that we've always been this little team, this little engine that could sort of thing, like punching above our weight, get up to third in the Premiership, go to Europe, get punted out, and then like cast down in the leagues and have to slowly, like over the course of like painstaking years, which I wasn't following the team, so I was fine. But painstaking years, climbing your way back up to the Premiership, I love that. I think that's so more than like that team. It almost is like in today's world, like a Queen's Park, like a Kelly Hearts, like Cove Rangers, like this small team that has this new ambition to like rise up through the leagues. That's kind of what I associate Livy back in the day with, which isn't the team that I sort of support now. What I support is a team that is pull itself up by its bootstraps, like as I say, punching above its weight. That struggle against the odds. That's like what I resonate with and what I think about Livy as. So I like hearing about those days, but when I think about Livy, it's more about the punching a team that punches above its weight and beats the bigger teams when it shouldn't.
Aye. Well, sort of following on for that, actually, do you think that we, as sort of like supporters that have supported Livingston for years, do you think that we are maybe too critical of the team? Like, because we've maybe sort of had those glory years, like we've sort of lived through them, and then like we come on here every week. Now we're finished 5th in the Premier League, or top 6.
Sixth.
St Johnstone ruin everything, man.
Yeah.
Then we've had a cup final this season, finished 5th last season, stayed up that, but we still always seem to find a negative. Do you think that us, not yourself, the others here, that are maybe a bit spoilt because we've lived through those glory years and that we're not sort of appreciating what Livy are doing as much at the moment? Maybe,
man, but I quite like that. I quite like it because I feel like people forget very quickly about what football's for, and you can say it's down in England, it's all about money, and up here sometimes it's about money as well, but really what the sport originated as, what sport is competition and entertainment. And being negative is a form of being entertained. Like if you are screaming at a player and you hate the setup and you hate the manager and why is the club doing this with the money and blah blah blah, that's a form of entertainment, and I think that's fun, and I think it's part of the sport and it's part of the I think if you take that away from Scottish football, you lose loads of character, you lose loads of like what makes, like, I don't follow English football at all. I'm in love with Scottish football. It's a soap opera. It's like it goes from like the lowest lows to the highest highs so quick, and I love that. The fact we can go from being in a cup final to and winning or not winning 14 games, but being unbeaten 14 games, to losing and not winning in about 14 games, I think is brilliant. And I think it sucks when it's happening, but looking back on it, like, who wants to talk about their team winning every game? Like, that to me, yeah, Rangers won every game this season, or probably are going to, but I think it's such a better story. Saying that Livy, we were absolutely terrible, then Davy Martindale becomes manager and we're class, and then we're terrible again after that, and we throw everything away. I think that's such a better story. It's all entertainment, man, and you have to appreciate the lows as well as the highs. So I love it.
I love that. So, final question. How do you think, or what can Livy do better to get more fans like you in the door? Because we've got a catchment of, in Livingston, the town alone, there's about 75,000 people. We have 900 season ticket holders. Obviously, as you said, there's football that's, deep in tradition. Your dad supported Rangers and all this. So what can Livy do you think? Because we've given away free tickets to schools. We've done a couple of bring your mate for a £5 if you're a season ticket holder. But what is it, do you think, that Livingston can do to get more fans in the door?
I have a lot of ideas about this. So for me, it was all about this positive experience going to the game. Right, it was, I found something that I was looking for. Happened upon it though, it was almost accidental. But it shouldn't be accidental. I don't know why it had to happen upon that. So for me, right, you're always going to get people that go to the Rangers games and the Celtic games, and there's old firm fans in the Livy, and we're going to get that, and even the Edinburgh clubs as well. They're going to be packed out, but you go to a game against Kilmarnock, St Mirren, Hamlin, there's nobody there. There's 1,000 Livy fans, maybe 1,300 Livy fans, and then a couple hundred with opposition fans. For me, those are the games that they're missing out on. You don't need to do, you don't need to go around schools and hand tickets out every week. You need to have, and you don't even need to do it for every one of these smaller games. You need to do something really big for one of the small games, whether it's 5 times a season. You need to get, what happened to me was I went to a game and it was brilliant, and the atmosphere was really, really good, and it was so good that it made me want to go back over and over again. So for me, you take 5 games a season, some of the smaller games, just do something, make it discount off meals at Tony Mac's. Do you know what I mean? Something like that. I don't know if they can do it with alcohol, to be fair, but go to the pub and you get £2 pints at Livy. Do some kind of event so you can have a whole day out. Do it, make it so that kids go free with season tickets. Why are we not doing that? It's ridiculous. What is actually going to cost the club to do that? So yeah, I have loads of ideas about that, but really it's about making, for me, you're never going to get people coming to Livingston to watch scintillating football, right? They're going to go somewhere else to watch that. They just are. It's just a reality that, yeah, we can play some good stuff, and I love the team, but we're not signing players for £5 million that are going to, Ryan Kent's, that are going to, skin 3 players and score. So you need to create it. People have to come to the game for something else, and that's about, first of all, sense of community, a day out, and then from there, hopefully, like I did, you see the players, you fall in love with the spirit of the team, and the atmosphere, and then you come back.
Pulling at my wee heartstrings, man.
Just a wee point while just we're on that topic. I think, I don't know if we would even have gone to them back in the day, Connor, even if it was just, I remember when we were young, they did have these proper kind of fun days. There was before a game and stuff like that, and they made the players seem like they were proper celebrities, and you got to come down and meet the players and do that, like you're saying there, that sense of community and that sense of creating a day. I think it's a great idea, and I think absolutely pushing that and having these open days again, just making the club so accessible. It does seem a bit especially in our, I don't know, from our experience with it, they seem to be kind of closed in their little clique.
100%. It seems to be this. Not to criticise any of the club, because I know there's very few people doing a lot of jobs at the club, but it does seem to be very there's almost an air of not bitterness, but kind of just sharp and jaggy, and it's you should be welcoming people in, not sort of having digs on Twitter and just I don't know. It just seems to be like they don't want more people coming. Is that like, you know, the attitude of like someone who's a long-term fan? Like there's probably fans of Livy that will potentially listen to this and think, oh, this guy's is genuinely a glory hunter. I don't appreciate like or respect the fact that he supports Livy now. But like, you should want fans. You should want more people in the stadium because it creates a better game and it creates a better experience for everyone. And it does seem like that kind of attitude is maybe at the club in some respect of like, we're going to do this on our own. We're going to like, we don't need anything else. Whereas like, why not just try and appeal to people and be nice and be like a family club?
Yeah, I think I reckon things are going to change. I think when we really need to almost, I don't want to say judge the club, but I'm going to say judge the club, is when things are back to normal. When we can get more people in, more people seeing how well we did this season, more volunteers, more people, for example, if our finances is all right, paying more people to be involved in the club. So I think, what we've seen right now when we've been in a lockdown for a year, but I'm buzzing to see what comes when everything opens up properly.
Yeah.
And we can get everyone that sense of community back in the stadium.
Yeah, it's a good point.
The Brit Awards, the Oscars, the Scottish Footballers' Writers' Awards, and even the official Livingston FC Player of the Year Awards. And what do all these things have in common? That's right, glitzy, glamorous, and they're not from the heart, but from a place of greed and need to sell tickets and merch. However, we have the awards ceremony for you, and we're just a week away. The Almond View Podcast End of Season Awards show spectacular! This week, we will reveal our nominations for goal and result of the season. However, just before we do, we take to Twitter to ask you, the people, to tell us the Almond View Guest of the Season, and we can reveal that the finalists going for the gold are David Fernandez, Oscar Rubio, Cammy McDonald, and in the tightest group of them all, and all thanks to a late flurry of votes, Colin McMenamin. And in a group between Derek Lilly, David Bingham, Barry Wilson, and the main man himself, Colin came out on top with 38% of the vote compared to David Bingham on 36% of the vote. Just goes to show that if you moan about something on Twitter, you can do anything. And we hope you're listening, Colin. We bloody love you. Anyway, now it's time to get our nominations. So boys, tell us your goal and result of the season. Starting with you, Povey.
So my goal of the season is actually going back near the start of the season. We didn't win the game, but it was a peach. It was Julian Serrano against Celtic at Parkhead. And I think there's something about a goal at Parkhead anyway. And we got two that day. Obviously, we got that penalty to put us 1-0 up. Then it was 3-1, obviously. But yeah, it gave us a wee glimmer of hope. Absolute beauty. You know, it was left foot, obviously, smashed it right into the top C. That was absolute peach. That, for me, is the goal of the season. Lots of contenders, which I'm sure we'll hear from you. And I thought Serrano's going to be class. And to be honest, he did play an important role this season. And, taking it all the way to he played in what I think is the result of the season, which is going to be the semi-final, to be honest. Because, again, big stage, Hampden Park. It's hard to argue. I know it was only 1-0, but my God, that for me was the best starting 11 of the season, that semi-final. What it should have been in for the final, in my opinion. You could argue that Owen's boyfriend should have been left back if he had actually been there at the time. But Serrano at left back at that stage, that was the best 11 for me. That was the best result. How could you argue? It took us to the final, which I'm not going to talk about. But there you are, Serrano and 1-0 against St Mirren, semi-final.
Thomas, what are your thoughts?
My goal of the season is the Puskas Award worthy flick round the corner and ping into the top bags by Jet against the Ackies just recently. I think it was just such a classy finish. Kind of made something. He was in a good position, to be fair to him. Got the ball in a good place. Was it Devlin that played it in? Came across and played it into him. So it was a nice bit of play, getting that bit of space in the box. But the way he took it was just unbelievable. It was absolutely fantastic. And I've said it a few times, but he kind of showed that little bit of quality that we may be missing from him, and showed what he can do and what he kind of has done more recently. But it was just such a good moment. To score a goal like that is something that you can get excited about, and I kind of agree the same with the Serrano one, because we were kind of not playing that great as far as I remember in that Celtic game. A goal to kind of perk you up and get you out your seat, get you celebrating, and I think Jet's goal was that. So it was close. There was a few other good ones, but yeah, that was the goal for me. It was an absolute stunner. Moving on to the results, it was a really tough one for me. It was two big away victories that I was kind of going between. So the one that I didn't pick was the Hibs away game, and the one that I went with was Aberdeen away, first time winning up there. It was just, we played really, really well. Great football, some good goals. I mean, they defended horrifically, to be fair. I think they were on a pretty shocking run at the time. Devlin getting free in the middle of the box for a free header is, someone should be getting sacked for that, and they did. Yeah, that was a great result. Kind of never expect anything going up there. Even when we're in our best form, you still don't really expect anything. And even when they come down here, they just seem to have been a bit of a bogey club for us, kind of forever. But to get that result, kind of was excellent. And again, I think it was our first time winning away up at Pittodrie.
First time in 17 years.
First time in 17 years. Okay, so I mean that's pretty special. It's been a long, long time. So yeah, that's my result of the season. The boys played great. Some questionable defending by Aberdeen, but again, good goals as well. Played good football, and a good result to bring down the road.
Owen, what about yourself?
Result of the season, I'm gonna have to go with the 3-0 away to Hibs. I think it was, there's nothing better than beating Hibs. I don't know what it is, but there is just no better feeling than sticking it right up them green pricks from the other side of the city. I don't understand why. I absolutely. I think it's just like the smugness of people like Martin Boyle and, to be honest, Jack Ross. Yeah, I think 3-0 was good. It was good to see like Josh Mullen like grabbing a goal as well, and Robbo's goal, like chasing down that entire defence and then just rolling it underneath. It wasn't even Marciano that was in goals at that game, I don't think either. I think it was that Massey guy. But I think 3-0 against Hibs, there's nothing better than beating Hibs. It's almost a yearly thing now that we get to get a decent result against Hibs. In terms of goal of the season for me, it's got to be Robbo against Kelly, last minute. But that's the type of game where previously under Holt, the break that Kelly had, Kelly would have scored and we would have lost that 2-1. And it just kind of started to show the belief that the team had to actually go on and keep that sort of run going or whatever. So, result 3-0 against Hibs. Goal definitely has to be Robbo against Kelly.
What about you, Daddy? Tell us your story.
My goal of the season, I did originally put Jet, but because he's going to get nominated, and let's face it, probably going to win eventually, I'm going to change mine to Josh Mullen against Hibs. I thought that was a brilliant finish, and it was like the first 2 minutes of the game as well. Mm-hmm. Long ball up, wee flick for the snake, Scotty Robinson, and then Mullen sort of runs onto it, hits it first time on the half volley into the bottom corner. Lovely move, lovely finish, lovely result. And it sort of shows that when you play Josh Mullen, good things happen. Mm-hmm. And recently we haven't been playing Josh Mullen, and bad things have been happening. So, and in terms of the result, again, I was gonna put the 3-0 at Hibs or the semi-final. But there is one that I think everyone has forgotten about, and it was near the start of the season. Dundee United 1, Livingston 2. Last minute goal from Alan Forrest. In terms of a result, we've beat Dundee United away before, obviously in the playoffs, and it wasn't the sort of long wait where we're waiting for it. Rugby Park this year, first win in 17 years. First win in 17 years at St Johnstone. First win in 17 years at Easter Road. Pittodrie. But I think the team was struggling at that point, and I just remember us being absolutely brilliant that game at Tannadice. Conceded a really soft goal, and I was thinking, this is going to be typical Livy, because we were in control before them, we were in control after. Even the first goal was Marvin Bartley was brilliant. Like, he sort of picked the ball up wide and beat a man, crossed it in. Guthrie first time finish, and then the last minute goal was sort of resembled the playoff goal for Scott Pittman at Tannadice a couple of years before, when we were just closing everything down, lapsing concentration for them, and it was a big Poplatnik of all people. I was wanting him to smash it, and then when I seen him slide it through, I was thinking, you absolute moron, because I was convinced that Forrest was offside. But last minute winner, probably the first time that we'd scored the last minute winner for God knows how many years, and it was our first away victory of the season. And at that point, I thought it would be our only away victory of the season, because that's usually what happens with Livy. But that was a great result, and brilliant performance. And it was under Gary Holt, and we give Gary Holt a lot of shit. I think, because of his cliches and because of his, we need to look at ourselves in the mirror, and he wasn't doing particularly well this season, but you can't argue that he wasn't one of the best managers we've had ever, in my opinion. So, yeah, I'm going to give Gary Holt a wee pat in the back there. A bit condescending, but who cares? Well done, Gary, for winning a game of football that you're supposed to. And he's kept Falkirk in League One. So
he's done a brilliant job.
You can't really argue with that. Fair play, Gary Holt. Livingston manager of the season for me. But nah, I would say Dundee United away 2-1. That's probably my result of the season.
Aye, no, definitely. It's funny just hearing everyone's kind of stories and opinions of the season, and just think, what a mental season this has been. Like, absolutely mental. And it kind of feels like it's gone really quick. But then when you talk about that Dundee United game, and that literally feels like about 3 years ago. Like, we've come such a long way by being so brilliant and so pish. And it's, in fact, like, I've loved every fucking minute of it. It's been brilliant. And then I was trying to think about, like, if we've had a season. I mean, apart from when being at Almonvale, maybe like 2000, back in the glory days, when you got, a few absolute rakers off Fernandez and Wilson and stuff like that. And guy I'm going to talk a little bit later, like guys like Nathan Lowndes, scoring that one at Easter Road. We've been pretty lucky for absolute screamers this season.
Yeah,
it's been great. So just before I get my two, I can't speak. What am I asking for? My goal and my game of the season. I'm a total copycat. Actually, I totally agree with Thomas. I just feel, I know he loves that. I just feel the Jet goal was just so unique, and to something we've just not really seen in a Livy jersey for quite a long time. Someone that can literally create something out of nothing. And although we've had our battles with Jet this season, he's been kind of what we've been crying out for ages, even if he has been, very up and down. So I've generally kind of loved having him. Actually, he's been brilliant, and for that goal, just the way he took it was brilliant. And then, not to repeat exactly what Thomas has said, just for going up to Pittodrie, I think for just anything about breaking that tradition, 17 years of just being, because I'm sure that was still during the hot streak, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. I think it was the end of the hot streak.
The end of the hot streak, and we're all thinking it's over tonight. We'll play better, and they'll scrap the result. Again, what we've seen numerous times against them. And then we absolutely smoked them, and defensively they were painfully pish, which was just so good. But overall, totally agree with Thomas. That's my choice. But What a fucking mental season this has been.
See, just sort of touching on that before we wrap up. It has, like, I have to say, like, that the Dundee United game feels like so long ago, and because the sort of the identity sort of the team has changed so much. Like, Scott Tiffany started that game, and we punted him out. Serrano was playing in that team. Mullen wasn't back yet. Alan Forrest was like on fire at that point. And it's just so weird that the team, it feels like two completely different teams in one season. Like Connor touched on it, that the glory years, like when we talk about it, it sounds like a different club. But this season, if you go from like August to November to now, it is like two completely different clubs, because it's just been such a whirlwind. So I'm sort of glad that this season's over though, because it's been amazing. It's been amazing, but fuck me, it's just been non-stop.
A quick thing just before we move on. See, do you think that what we could have, because obviously, like we said, it's been so topsy-turvy, and we've been crying out that when we were winning, we were loving the Martindale change things because he's so into his video analysis and stuff like that. But then arguably now, when it's got to the end of the season, we could argue that's maybe been our downfall because of the amount of rotation in the squad. In hindsight, what do you think would have been better?
I think, for me, you just play your best 11. Like, and find ways for them to click better. Yeah. Like, and I think I've said it a few times and on Twitter and stuff as well, that we just focus far too much on trying to stop the opposition rather than like look at what we can actually do. You've got Jet up front, as you and Thomas said, he's got the ability to just do something out of nothing. And I just feel at times that we sort of restrict him doing that now, because he's sort of playing out wide and he needs to mark this man to stop him going forward. And for me, you need a settled team, and like the fact that we can rhyme off who played in the Livy CIS Cup final of 2004, because it was and that was like, that team was the same team every week unless there was an injury.
Yeah.
And they done it all right. So I can't the best 11 of us do it. I don't know if any of the other boys have got anything on that.
I would say it's I've said it before that the cup final changed things. I think, I said it earlier there, my best 11 was that semi-final. I agree we should be sticking with that lot. But overall, really, the cup final, it's been heads down since. Obviously, Jet's come in and done amazing, but I just think it's more morale than actually whoever. It doesn't matter who we pick. I think that's why Kabaya, when he's coming, again, the boys who weren't involved necessarily in the cup run and all that, in the cup final, I think they've freshened things up. But yeah, the cup finals really hit our morale and kind of had an impact on results. Really hard to pick out any decent results we've had since since our unbeaten run ended. But that's what I think.
Yeah, it's really difficult. I kind of agree with Povey, because I definitely think there is a morale issue, and I think with things going on behind the scenes as well, that Robbo hasn't played a game since just after the cup final, stuff like that. There's clearly something not quite right, and the onus is on now for them to fix it. You would have hoped that it would have been fixed beforehand and it wouldn't have crept into the rest of the season like it has. But we've been not great. We've had our moments where we've played decent football, but we've not been able to maintain it, and we've not been able to defend, and we've been giving away silly goals and throwing away points from from silly defending and stuff like that, and just things that don't characterise Livingston over the last kind of 3-4 years. That solid defence, not giving away anything, everyone fighting for it. It just doesn't seem quite there at the moment. And I think there's been a lot of rotation, and I do agree that we're kind of focusing way too much on the other teams as well. I think it's an element of both. I think we need to play our own game and be confident that we can play our own game, because that's the way that we always did it. Coming up from League One, we played our own way. Didn't matter what the other team was doing, unless it's like a Celtic or a Rangers. But we need to play our own way, use the players in the positions that we can, and we would have got more points, I think. But I think it's a combination of the two, sitting on the fence.
I completely agree with Thomas there. Remember when we were in the cup game against Hibs? We lost 3-2. That was a case of we were playing the same lineup every single week. There was no major surprise change in there. I think we maybe had to throw in Jack McMillan for that game. But we just went out there and we played really, really, really well. And it was just the same team the entire time back when we were in the Championship. Flash forward to now, when I think, from memory, we've played the same side twice all season, but there's not been a single change. And it's starting to get frustrating, because again, you've got players like McMillan, who has shown, last season specifically, has shown how good of a defender that he is. And he even came on for Jackson Longridge recently, and he showed how good he was against Hibs to be able to shut out Martin Boyle. I think there is an element of, since Robbo got subbed against Rangers, is it a bit of a surprise that the rest of the team seem to have down tools? Robbo would have been a popular figure in the dressing room at that time. So I think that's had an effect on the whole team. And again, I've tried to shirk away from it. I know I've mentioned it to you guys in the group chat, etc. But I don't think Martindale is the right person to take this club forward, because I think he's fallen out with players. There's Tiffany, as you said, Liam, started a game, then all of a sudden he's punted out on loan to a League One club. Hamilton started a game or came on, scored a goal, immediately a week later he's punted out to a Championship club. It's like we all know what our best 11 is. Most of us know what our best 11 is. Martindale's thinking it through too much. He's a good coach. He's a great coach, in fact. I mean, I'm not saying that he's not good at what he does. I don't trust his judgment at all, because every single game since the cup final, I've not trusted his judgment at all. You look at every line. How many times have we looked at a lineup and said, we're getting hammered today? We're getting absolutely hammered today. And we haven't been hammered as such, but we've ended up losing the game. If we'd picked our strongest side when we played Celtic and got beat 6-0, would we have got beat 6-0? I'm waffling just now. My feelings about Martindale have really changed since he came in. I don't think he's the right man to take the club forward next season. But if that's what the club decide, and hopefully we can show something in the next two fixtures, the last two fixtures of the season, to change my mind on that.
I'm going to say, he's nominated for Manager of the Year, and he's not even had a full season. I think, give him a full season.
Yeah.
See where he's at. He's you know what I mean? It's a bit, and plus it'd be so Livy to just and we're getting another manager. Hey, I want Martindale in, and I want him to get a full season, and I want him to be the manager forever and ever.
For me, on Martindale, I can see where the frustration's coming from, Owen, and I can see sort of half your logic. But as Povey said, he's been nominated for Manager of the Year with less than a full season. there is absolutely no way that Gary Holt was taking us to a cup final. Like, absolutely no way we were getting to a cup final under Gary Holt. I think the unbeaten run has been his downfall, in terms of, if those 14 games were spread between when he first started to this point just now, we would be talking about how great a manager he is. It's just because everything went so high at one time and then just so low. Like, there's no consistency in that, and I get that. But if you look at the 28 games that he's come in charge, he's won 14 or however many, and the other 14 have been draws and losses. Like, he's probably sitting at about 50% win ratio, which is, for a Livingston manager, stupid. For a Livingston manager in the Premier League, is stupid. I think only David Hopkin is the only manager that's got more than 43% or something. So, yeah, I think I can see where you're coming from. I think the only issue is, as I said, that the unbeaten run was his downfall. It came at us so quickly, and then it's just been taken away from us because we couldn't find a level of consistency for the cup final, which meant that we were pish. And I think he started doubting himself a wee bit. He started overthinking things. So I think in the summer, and especially with players like Robbo leaving, as much as I think it's a mistake letting him go because he was really keen to stay, and Martindale sounds as if he's just been like, nah, fuck you, like, you're away. That might have been a mistake, but I think, as Povey said, give him a full season, like we did with Holt last year, and then sort of go from there. And then obviously as well, it's a bit of a Craig Levein effect that if he stays, if he stops being manager, he's still going to be involved. So it's, we're never actually going to get rid of him.
I do understand that. Completely understand that. My point would be, if we gave him a full season, by Christmas, we're bottom of the league. This is just obviously hypothetical. I'm not saying that in any way this would happen. But by Christmas, we're bottom of the league. And we then start talking about replacing the manager. And Martindale goes completely. Right now, he's got a good reputation. We could keep him. People are still kind of on side. I don't want to get rid of him totally, because I think, his recruitment has always been really good. He's good to have around the club because, again, he is a very, very good coach and people do like him. But is he the right manager, is what I'm saying. I don't think that he manages the players very well. For the fact that we've got Scott Robinson going out. Tiffany's not going to sign a new deal despite how on fire he is. And despite how much I want to see Tiffany again next year. I've always rated Tiffany. He's obviously just needing that wee bit of confidence. Now he's got it. We could take advantage of that for next season. But now he's going to end up at some jobber club down in League One or the Championship, I just don't think he's the right manager to take us forward. I think behind the scenes, he's the right person to take us forward because look at what he's done. I'm not disagreeing with what he's done. I just don't think that his management, certainly behind the scenes, his tactics have been very questionable at times as well. Team selection been very questionable since the cup final. I just think that it would be better to at least even have that dialogue out there with some other kind of manager, or even bringing in a more experienced coach than Liam Fox, who's only worked with under-17s before. I think there needs to be someone more experienced at the club to help Davy as well. Because Davy's not experienced. Liam Fox isn't experienced. Tony Caig isn't exactly very experienced either. That's kind of more my point. I just don't think Martindale's the right manager to take us forward. He's the right person behind the scenes at the club to take us forward. But I don't think he's the right manager to be in charge of the team on a day-to-day basis, because I think he falls out with players very, very quickly.
We're recording this the night before the Lions have their final home game of the season against those ravenous, big pod Queen shagging bears. But let's face it, they've probably got beat. If not though, ooh baby, love you, Livy. Our last game of this absolutely mental season is against our new favourite worst nightmare, fucking St Johnstone. Anyway, we wanted to hear the boys' favourite Livy/Saints connections, with them telling us their favourite player that played for both clubs. Owen, why don't you kick us off?
I chose Murray Davidson because I think Murray Davidson was a cracking young player for us. I mean, he came through into the first team when he was only 18. Ended up playing 33 games, which sounds like not a lot, but for someone who's only, between the ages of 18 and say 21-ish, pretty good. Scored 7 goals. Took him a while to score a goal, but here's an interesting one for you, or 2 interesting wee facts for you. He made his debut for Livingston versus St Johnstone. He scored his first Livingston goal against St Johnstone. He's one of the very sort of underrated Premiership players, because I think he's always, St Johnstone haven't been relegated, I don't think, since he joined them. And probably even they got promoted in the season that he joined them. Just one of those classic sort of number 6 to use kind of modern terms, just kind of proper defensive midfield, tall, lanky, strong in the tackle, loves a red card, certainly loves a yellow card. And again, it took him ages to score a goal. Certainly for us, I remember being at that St Johnstone game where he scored that first goal and being like, Murray Davidson just scored. What? You never saw that, and it was like the boy just. Yeah, I don't know what it was about him. There was just something about he's one of those players that if I wasn't wearing my glasses or you were totally blind and you looked out on the pitch, you could tell it was Murray Davidson. Just the way he ran, the way he looked and everything like that. But again, since he's been at St Johnstone, 315 appearances, 33 goals, which is quite a, good return for a defensive midfielder. He's also one of the very few and I think one of the only ones of that you guys have chosen who've won a Scotland cap as well. Fair enough, it was against like Luxembourg or Liechtenstein or some really, really shan team, and probably came on after like 89 minutes, literally just to see out the game sort of thing. His career's kind of been hampered by injury, even though when he was with us, it was kind of the same. He kind of seemed to get injured quite a lot. And I really do hope that he can somehow find an element of fitness for the end of the season, because of the fact that St Johnstone have been in a Scottish Cup final, which he missed due to injury, the League Cup final earlier on this season, which he missed just due to injury, and of course it would be really good to kind of see him at least get, even if they don't win the final this year, which of course we hope they don't, but even if he was, again, similar to his Scotland cap, comes on after 89, 90 minutes just to see out the game, just to say that, he's been able to play in a Scottish Cup final. He's 33, he's going to be retiring soon, surely. Again, the injuries are too much for him. But, very fond memories of Murray Davidson, one of those players that you kind of love to hate when he plays against you, but always admired them. So, yeah.
Thomas, tell us your story.
So, I have picked Dr. Kenneth Robert John Duca.
Hey.
Not only was he a fantastic podcast guest, because he was very, very good, entertaining, good value for a laugh. It was really good. He did the podcast from his doctor's surgery, which I thought was fantastic. Mm-hmm. I thought that was brilliant, sitting there. A truly lovely guy, and not only did he play for both St Johnstone twice, 2 spells apparently, played for Livingston. He also played in the same game as football as David Beckham, which I think that beats a Scotland cap. I definitely think that beats a Scotland cap. He's been on a competitive park with David Beckham. I mean, there's not very many people that can say that. Certainly that have played for Livingston or St Johnstone. But I to be perfectly honest, I don't really remember his time with us that well. Maybe that kind of age where I wasn't following as much, but looking at his stats, the goals that he scored, and the kind of the path through his career as well. Obviously, still doing the medical stuff alongside playing football part time and performing, getting through the injuries that he went through early in his career. I think, you know, he breaks the mould of the stereotype of a footballer for sure. Very smart bloke, and I think he's got a great story. He obviously continues to do good to this day. What a guy. And I just hope that everyone else remembers him as fondly as me. Dr. Kenny Duker.
Povey, who is your Saint Livy connection?
I'm going for the main man, Alan Main. How many good goalies have we had, by the way? And just over the years, so many good ones. Now, Alan Main was drafted in from St Johnstone. He'd been injured for St Johnstone for a while, but like we had Brotto, obviously, and then he was injured, and we were playing wee Baldy Dave McEwen, and fair play, man. He was really young. Like, I don't even know really what's happened to him, but anyway, I know he was at Hamilton after us, but hey ho, he was really young, and bear in mind that was our European season, you know, and then we got Alan Main in, who had been, I'd say, St Johnstone for years and years, and I thought, such a good signing. I thought, you know, I used to buy him on LMA Manager when I was a wee boy, like, for, you know, so like, total legend. And yeah, he came in and he finished off that season, like, pretty much played the remainder of that season for us from the end of January, start of February. I think his first games were like Celtic and Rangers, to be honest, and we got beat, like, but, you know, they were respectable results. And then obviously following that, he was in the season, the cup winning season, and he stayed with us. Obviously, he must have taken a massive wage cut, but he did stay with us. He was on the bench for the cup final when we won. So he's, you know, even though he didn't play that much, I always thought he was solid. I think he did concede like 5 or 6 against Celtic that season, right enough. But like at the start of the season, I mind he played. But no, I was always a big fan of Alan Main. Solid, really good goalie. Mackenzie in goals with Alan Main on your bench. Come on, that's outrageous. So big sexy Alan Main, big fan of him. Didn't play much with us, but he was part of. Probably made Roddy McKenzie a better goalie, you know, having him there. So that's my main man.
My favourite Livy St Johnstone connection is none other than, in my opinion, the most underrated Livingston player of all time, Dave Mackay. Dave Mackay was so good. I was almost going to say that he is probably the greatest Livingston player to never play for Livingston in the SPL. However, I did remember that he played in the Paul Lambert SPL team. So he's arguably part of the worst Livingston side ever. But I don't really remember him from that season, but it was the seasons after that, like the first season back in the first division. He was like Craig Halkett in a way that I think he finished our top goal scorer 2 or 3 seasons in a row. Like, it was sort of 7-8 goals. I think he used to take penalties, but he was always a threat from corners and stuff as well. I remember him scoring an absolute raker against, I think it was Queen of the South. And it was the game that Cammy McDonald mentioned, that on their way to the game, they seen the article of Roberto Landi saying, "Oh, we're going to split the Old Firm," and we actually got beat. I think it was 7-1 off of 6 or 7-1 off of Queen of the South that day. But the one goal that we scored, I'm sure he cut in on his left foot, like about 35 yards, pinged at top bin. But yeah, and just everything, man. Like hearing the stories about him during the Italian era of just like going mental, standing up for the players, knowing that he's probably missing his mortgage payments and stuff, and he was still, despite going through all that shit, he was still just so class for us that season. And then, funnily enough, Owen's pick, Murray Davidson, I'm sure we sold Dave Mackay and Murray Davidson to St Johnstone as part of like a package. So you weren't getting one or, like, you couldn't only have one, you had to pay for them both. I honestly, I was gutted when he left. And I think, honestly, like, he went and won the Scottish Cup with St Johnstone, team captain and stuff. I think he was just so underrated at Livy, and not enough fans sort of really remember or talk about how good he was. They'll always sort of put at right back David McNamee or Philip Branquan. But for me, I think he was one of the best right backs we ever had. Oh my God. And I met him at a Linlithgow Rose v Falkirk game in the Scottish Cup. And I talked to him for 5 minutes about a goal that he scored against Hearts for Livy. I think we got beat 4-1, but he scored for the edge of the box with a volley, top bin. Oh, so good. But sat and talked to him for about 5 minutes about that, because he said that I was the only one that's ever mentioned it to him. I sort of went up to Dave Mackay during the first half when I was away getting a pie. And I said to my friend Craig, I was like, fuck, that's Dave Mackay. He used to play for Livingston. He was like, I fucking loved him, man. He scored this amazing goal against Hearts. He scored this amazing goal against Queen of the South. And he was like, oh, go and ask for a photo. And I was like, I was steaming, so I was like, aye, sound. And I was like, excuse me, are you Dave Mackay? And there was this other guy standing next to him. And he had this sort of like Peaky Blinders hat, these big, massive glasses, sort of big trench coat and that. And I was just like, I actually thought he looked a bit sad. And I was like, who the fuck is this? Like, who's this guy next to him? Turns out it was John Yogi Hughes. Just didn't recognise him. And I was going, oh, I'm a massive Livy fan. Oh, I love Livy so much, man. And fucking John Hughes is standing there, and I could see him like going like that, like sort of going, oh, well, you know, I was at Livy too. No, you do not want a photo with me, that's fine. So I was like, fucking get up, you John Hughes, man.
Yes.
Can I just quickly say, the deal for Davidson and Mackay, it was 50 grand. And it was 50 grand for Murray Davidson and Dave Mackay on a free. That's what the deal was. But also, Dave Mackay was one of those players who could win you a game on his own from right back. He was just incredible. I totally and utterly agree. Like, again, see if you were to ask me to choose like my sort of all-time favourite Livy 11, I would, just as Liam said, go for someone like Branquan or McNamee or something like that. But totally, Dave Mackay is almost a shoe-in for right back, actually, when you think about it. He was incredible.
So my favourite Livy St Johnstone player is a guy who I had this kind of weird obsession with when I was younger, and I actually brought this up to Colin McMenamin, that like I used to pretend I was him when I was scoring between two jumpers in my granny's street. And weird enough, my guy Nathan Lowndes was also one of them as well. I kind of felt he was like a bit of an underdog, because he was obviously a part of the team at a time when we did not need a Nathan Lowndes. So I kind of loved him. And obviously, he scored an absolute belter. He had one good game, I think. Well, good game against Hibs, and he scored the absolute screamer. I have just checked on Wikipedia, and I've got a fun fact for all you Nathan Lowndes fans, is that his sister, Emma Lowndes, was in Downton Abbey.
Wow.
Portraying Bella Gregson in Cranford, Mary Rivers and Jane. I don't fucking know what the words are. Anyway, apparently that's my fun Nathan Lowndes fact. Anyway, last thing touching Nathan Lowndes, right? I don't actually have much info on him playing that much, apart from he did this weird thing in the warm-up, and again I've spoken about this before, but I loved it, and I kept copying him. As I said before, I think it might have been first, was it to Derek Lilly? I can't remember. He did the leg thing. He flicked his legs out like an antelope, and I loved it, because that's my seat was right down the front, and I was always right where the subs were warming up. And I was like, I love that move. So I did it for ages. And then I got proper pelters for it at football training once. Like, why are you doing that? And you couldn't exactly say, well, Nathan Lowndes does it. They've been like, who? Who the fuck's Nathan Lowndes? Anyway, Lowndsy, if you ever want to come on the show, mate, I'm here for you.
Thanks again for listening. Remember to check out our social media pages. Twitter and Instagram is @AmondViewPod, all one word. Search for us on Facebook and YouTube by searching the Amond View Podcast, and make sure you follow us wherever you get your podcasts from: Apple, Spotify, Anchor, etc. And if this is your first time listening, welcome. But also check out some of our previous episodes with exclusive interviews with former Livingston players such as David Fernandez, David Bingham, Sean Byrne, and so many more. Forza Livy, #Lions in the Camp. Hope to see you next week.